You're listening to the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast, where we explore the connection between running and positive mental health. We do this by talking to runners from all walks of life who generously share their experiences with us. So you don't miss an episode, I've created an email list for you to join. Check the show notes for more details. Without further ado, I'm your host, Michelle Frost. Let's get moving. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast. Today we're putting on our running shoes with Peter Wheatley to find out why he took on 60 marathons in 60 days to celebrate his 60th birthday. From transforming personal struggles into triumphs to making incredible strides for social justice, Peter's story of resilience, wellness, and community is truly inspiring. Get ready to embark on a journey that will leave you feeling energized and ready to conquer your own marathons, whatever they might look like for you. Let's get started. Today on Fit Mind, Fit Body, I am really excited to introduce you all to Peter Wheatley. Hello, Peter.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm really good. It's so good to meet you. Actually, I've had more than one person recommended to you to come onto the podcast over the last little bit. And I thought, I really should get you on. So here you are. So I'm excited to learn more about you. I think we have a lot of mutual Facebook friends because Tasmania's like that. But anyway, thank you for saying yes. I do appreciate you coming on to share some of your story with us.
Thank you too. And thanks for showing an interest in an area for which we need far more awareness.
Absolutely. All right, let's start, Peter, with where did you grow up? Where are you from?
I like to consider myself as being Welsh. My parents were in the British Army. My dad was from Northumberland and my mum is from Somerset. But I was born in Wales, so I was there for 6 months. So therefore, I never qualified for the singing gene nor the rugby gene. I was born in Manorbier in Pembrokeshire, which is called Little England because it's a fairly big army base there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then where did you go from there? Like if you were only 6 months when you moved from there?
We moved to Germany. Okay. Being in the British Army, we kind of occupied the occupying forces, or transition forces, and then was there for a couple of years and moved back to England and then moved to Kenya.
Wow.
I was there during the Mau Mau uprising, there for 2 years, and then the British were kindly asked to leave. So then we moved to Aden, Yemen, where there's a fairly big war and famine on at the moment, which is nobody talks about, and it's pretty awful.
Wow.
And we, had a couple of hand grenades thrown at the house, and I remember thinking, well, this is pretty ordinary.
How old were you then? Sorry to interrupt.
I was 8 then. I was I was and still am the eldest of 4 boys.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was kind of moving around the world was a very good experience for us. And then I moved back to Germany, and then I went to boarding school in England for a couple of years with my brother Norm, who's a year younger than me. My dad's an avid soccer player, nearly became a professional soccer player, and but joined the army instead. And we were 4 boys. We had a choice of any game we wanted to play outside as long as it was soccer. So I was pretty poor at soccer. Started up the front, found out I couldn't breathe, so I ended up becoming a defender. Then at 28, found out I had exercise-induced asthma.
Oh, no.
So I had, it was solidly built muscle-wise, but just couldn't breathe. So this was we moved in 1971. We moved from Germany to Perth in Western Australia.
Yeah.
And as most, there was a lot of English people did. And, getting used to the heat was interesting, but getting used to the freedom was just wonderful. I particularly didn't like England. I found well, I found the culture not suited to me as somebody who'd lived around different parts of the world, and we were very accepting of different cultures and different ways of living, and different sights and sounds. Whereas some people would used to live in the same place all the time, and so therefore a very insular view of the world. And that didn't. It was so pleased that my dad made one very brave decision, which was to come to Australia. I certainly don't think it was easy for him, but he maintained a very great interest in soccer, and quite rightly so, because my youngest brother, almost became professional. And
oh wow,
good. So that was back then. I was just playing soccer.
How old were you when you emigrated to Australia?
I was 14.
Okay.
Yeah. What's called £10 passengers.
Yep. My dad's a POM. He just got my mum pregnant and then moved to Australia. That's 54 years ago.
Well, that's
it's a different one.
A different story, and I guess hopefully it was a good decision for them.
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
All my siblings believe so.
Well, I think we are in the lucky country, and I'm certainly interested in how the country's going at the moment, and I have particular political views that probably shouldn't air. Mine, I have a view, and always had a view, that the world is small, and there's only so many degrees of separation. So even in boarding school, it was a small boarding school. It was boys' boarding school, but there was 7 or 8 girls there, and a lot of the children were from Sierra Leone and Ghana. So we got at an early age, we got inculcated with different smells and different cultures and different ways of living. And so that was, I guess I had a very fortunate upbringing.
I love that.
A fortunate upbringing, also having 3 brothers, and we're all very close together, and we're all very close. The first 3 boys lost their hair at an early stage, and the youngest one is obviously the milkman's, because he's still got hair. And and I think fun, exercise, outdoor living has always been part of our life. Yeah. Which that might have been the sign of the times, but it's how it's how we grew up.
Yeah, it sounds like your family sort of encouraged that kind of exploration as well, by moving around all over the place, and then moving to Australia. I think a lot of the British people who moved to Australia, in part, it was the culture here, and that was seen to be an outdoorsy type of environment, because I guess the weather was conducive to that and all sorts of other things.
Oh yes, certainly in Western Australia it was, and also grumbling, because that's what English people do. And my dad was a very good participant of that.
I got one of those.
Yeah, just too hot. Anyway, I got married young. I got married at 18 and a half.
Yeah.
After going to 2 years of high school, and we in those days you used to have a thing called junior wage. So even though I was married, I didn't get paid an adult wage because I was only 18. So a situation came up where I was working for the Energy Commission of Western Australia, or it's called the State Electricity Commission back then. And it's a large organisation, it had 9,000 people in, and there was one position going that nobody wanted, and it was a payroll officer down in Albany in Western Australia, so 4 hours away from Perth. So we had a young Matthew, our eldest, and so off I went. And the interesting thing for me was, so then I got the adult wage, but I'm absolutely hopeless with numbers, but we're dealing with OCR sheets, and my writing's not the best, and also we're dealing with money. And I certainly, I had a little gig at the university trying to balance the cash tills at university, and all that ever happened to me was I just broke out in sweat and panicked. And when it came to writing, I did English and English literature at school in order to get a really good job, and I failed both.
Oh no!
So I became a clerk, as you do. But what I did find is that I excelled at being very interested in people, and always don't do the right thing. And so my social justice kind of work started from there. My ex-wife and my wife at the time, moved to from there to Muja Power Station, which is near
Yeah.
Collie, and that has was 1,040 megawatts, so it's bigger than all of Tasmania's needs.
Wow.
And I was a station clerk, so the engineer was in charge of all the engineering side, and I was in charge of everything admin. So I started off with one staff member and ended up with 14. Started off with
Wow.
something with 200 employees, which I was responsible for, then to 1,500. So I got to know a lot of things about people and the differences and how the other race and culture, and it was in the time when unemployment was really high, so the government did some really good things, and I just found that even though somebody was unemployed and was on this called the RED scheme, regional employment development scheme, and they couldn't find work in Perth, so they had to come down and live in Collie, and they were fantastic people, and so I set up an indoor soccer. So with using an oval-edged tennis ball, and it's the first time being done in Australia. And so I made up the rules, and we played on an indoor tennis court, and we just had a league, and that became a bigger league, and then it was just fun.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I guess the best thing that happened there though was my ex-wife decided that, well, we decided it was a good time for her to leave.
Okay.
So I was a single parent for 2 years with 3 kids, working full time and doing long days in a power station 200 kilometres away from any relatives.
And how old were you then?
I was 20. I was 28.
Okay.
And that's when I grew up. I had a little bit of hair, so I got my blonde tips. I got an earring, and that's when I discovered that I had exercise-induced asthma, and I found meditation to be a really good thing because I meditate and fall asleep. So I started to realize that I'm in charge of me. Then Catherine came into my life. She is. Back then she was an occupational health nurse, and her induction into the Energy Commission was actually by my mum, who was an occupational health nurse up in Perth. And so the story goes that my mum's talking about this great guy, he's got these 3 beautiful kids, and he's divorced, and he's by himself, and he's, violin's going, he's lonely. And so Catherine, of course, took no interest. Catherine's from Tasmania. She's from Campbelltown. She's a nurse. And then she met me, and apparently that was the beginning of the end for her. So 37 years later, we're still going strong. And
that's amazing.
We have a very interesting life, where we both have given each other a gift to live the life you need to lead in order that you have no regrets when you die. So Catherine lives overseas a lot of the time. So this year is the first year in 12 years that she's actually been home to Hobart in winter.
Oh wow!
And normally she'd be away for 6 months of the year. And look, it's great. It's a great thing to be able to do, because we do only have one life. And I think when people come to realize that, you should make a decision about every second of your day and live it fully and take responsibility for it, because it will end. We can choose the life we want to lead up to that final point. So that's our mantra. That's how we live. And we're fortunate to have had Catherine's been the mother to 3 children. So Matthew, who's, I don't know, he's 45. Joanne is 43, and Andrew's 41. And they're all sensible, sane, as much as a Wheatley can be sane. They're sane-ish people. And they've learned a lot by Catherine about don't live inside the box you live in. Think out what you can do and what you can do to make your life and the world a better place. So we, whilst we're philosophical, we also make decisions and do things. So I'm blessed that way. Catherine's a black and white thinker. So she woke up one day and said, "Pete, you've got a degree in nursing, and I'm a nurse and a midwife. So I think I'll go and get a PhD in 7 years' time. I can either wish I had a PhD or have one. So she went off and got a PhD in biochemistry, and
I love it.
and I just think, that's kind of inspirational stuff I live around. And so back to running, I guess.
When did you move to Tassie? Just out of
Right, about 1986.
Okay. Were you running prior to that in Western Australia? You were
No,
doing the indoor soccer.
indoor soccer, that was about it. But indoor soccer was the main vehicle for having a drink. So
Okay. It's a social thing.
social thing, yeah.
Very Australian, actually, and British. So
Very, very. And I think, whilst my family's life may have centered around alcohol, mine didn't particularly.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, but it didn't seem to do me. I just put on weight and didn't like it. So we moved in about 86 to Launceston. But then kind of Catherine had this really good job in Hobart. So we bought a house in Hobart. And I was doing disability work and helping people in and out of beds. And I found that really rewarding, but it wasn't ever going to be a career. So I thought, I heard on the radio that there was nursing wanted more nurses, and it was the first. It was going through the university. Now, bearing in mind Catherine's hospital trained, I kind of rung up and said I really, really want to be a nurse. So they said, "Come on, the course is 2 weeks old, but you can come in." So that's probably one of the only times I actually made a decision by myself without consulting Catherine. And give her credit; she was very respectful of my decision. I don't think it wasn't easy, because I'd have to catch a bus up to Launceston every week and come back. But during the week we had no phone. Catherine had 3 children that she'd only known for a year, and because she was 23 when we got married, and we also had a little beagle, of course, and the beagle always got out. So it was a really tough life, especially given that this job that she had as a domiciliary nurse was what she really loved doing. So she worked full time, brought up the kids, and I just went up to Launceston on a bus with 140 women and 14 blokes.
Wow, that's amazing.
But it certainly made me put in my nose to the grindstone and study.
Yeah.
So I came out with a degree in nursing and got a job in Launceston at a first-year graduate program for the LGH, and still not exercising. Did a lot of bushwalking in Launceston. Launceston is a fantastic place to go up to the tiers and do.
It is. It's beautiful.
And we had a great deal of time doing that. And also, our next door neighbour, Richard Fife, was and is a cyclist. So I suddenly had this ancient stainless steel bike that we couldn't afford, but anyway, I did it, and we went cycling. And this is when interest rates were 17%.
Wow.
So 1 week of your wage would go to pay the mortgage if you're lucky to have food. So, we had an old Falcon with no reverse gear, so you find a way to park the car. So, or
not on some of the big hills.
Or just sometimes you think you're lucky you got some free kids, so everyone can push.
I love it.
Yeah. So I think those were fun times. Did a lot of baking and cooking and preserving. Yeah, all that. Yeah, so you've been there and done that. Necessity is the mother of all invention. Yeah. And still, we actually the only soccer I played was with there's an amateur league. So we used to go and train with the people from the Golden Sea Dragon restaurant on a Sunday, because it's the only time that they could train, and then go to their place and have quite a bit of cognac, because apparently they liked it. So that was all good fun. And of course the children were doing their thing around swimming and cycling, and Joanne was doing rowing. And as we were time poor, Jo would have to walk down to the Tamar rowing sheds by herself at a young age in the early hours of the morning, and I guess times were different. We wouldn't do it again, but I think times are certainly different then. And I remember vividly Andrew, the youngest one, being 5 and trying to play soccer, and all he did was just stand there and the ball went around him and he just said, great game. So he became a young man who just was not interested in team sports. So he did a lot of rollerblading and skateboarding and really adventurous, dangerous stuff. Whereas Matthew, being the eldest and the responsible one, would do soccer and Sea Scouts and so on. So they were good. Moving, I guess, on is an opportunity came up for. Now I worked for the health department. I managed the nursing human resources at the LGH, and they made that redundant. Then I became manager of disability services for the state government up north, Northern Region. So I was one of the 3 managers that helped close Willow Court, and so we built the community organisations in Launceston, the group homes and respite centres and so on. And that was exciting. It was really, it was a job I really loved. At that time, Catherine was still studying. I've been working in disability group homes before that. So no time for study because you're too busy trying to make money to study and to keep the family alive. And, when the youngest drinks 9 litres of milk on a weekend, got to get somewhere. So no time for exercise. Catherine used to exercise because we used to walk from West Launceston to the hospital to do a midwifery.
Yeah.
I didn't. And I just think those were times that, they were hard, but they made you more lean in how you spent your time and how you exercised the family relationships. So, put a screwdriver through the television. So for 8 years, we didn't have a television, but we had to talk. We always said grace before dinner was put on the table. So it's a bit like on your marks, get set, go. The grace stopped as soon as the children left home. And I just think it was, for the formative years, kind of with the backbone of who the children and who Catherine and I are. And never ever stopped thinking about what can you do for other people. I don't know whether it was us or whether the times are different, but then the state government decided in their wisdom that they need to get rid of Hobart bureaucrats, so that my position somehow became redundant. So I spent 7 months doing as a public servant with a car, with a brick phone, and no portfolio. So I built 2 children's respite centres and found money for it somewhere. And then the time was to go to Hobart. And on the way to Hobart, so Catherine could finish her PhD in biochemistry, we rented a house in Sandy Bay, swearing never to live there again because it was a horrible place and people were snobby and horrible. We live there now.
Of course.
But so got challenged because I had to find work, and I got a bit of a small redundancy. So I said to Catherine, I want to set up my own business. I've always wanted to do this. She said, good, follow your dream. So in my mind, I purchased a BMW, a couple of Hugo Boss suits, rented an office, and so Catherine said, no, here's $500 to get you started, and I need $500 a week to run the family. So I listened to what Catherine says.
Obviously.
So it drove me to do some things that I hated doing. So I went into training people around safety and in safety inductions. So even though I've done it in the power station for years, I was quite nervous around presentations, especially on topics that I wasn't particularly familiar with. But I did that for quite a while and then started up a rehab business, and we're now 25 years next year down the track of running PeopleWorks. So I'm pretty pumped.
That's awesome. Do you get long service leave?
Long nervous leave. I don't like the boss. But
well, what can you do?
But that's me. So the other boss, Catherine, is brilliant. She's our moral compass and keeps us on the straight and narrow. So we're a very values-based organisation, definitely around UN principles around human rights and eradication of poverty and so on.
Yeah.
So the business grew and waned and grew and waned, and I'm really happy with all the people who have worked here. The people who have left needed to leave, and some of that was developing people so they could have their own business, and some of it was having conversations with people so they convinced themselves they weren't a right fit. And I think in that, one of the blessedly good things about Tasmania is I think the degrees of separation is very small. So you find out a lot about the good people in town, the good practitioners, and I mean, it can also work the other way, but you're always pushing yourself to do good and to do great work, whether that's coaching somebody that you've known who's got knock knees but wants to run a marathon, so you find a creative way to overcome the knock knees so that she can run her marathon, and then it's her achievement, not mine, but she's done that. So running.
How did running fit into what sounds like a action-packed?
Yeah.
Single dad, then not single dad, then taking on different degrees and learning stuff, then starting a business and moving, and like lots of times there's a lot of packed in there, Peter.
Well, I think it was when I was I got married at 30 and the children left home, and then so we just had Catherine and I talk a lot about the empty nest syndrome, and we were starting to experience that, and I'd been traveling the state delivering medication programs for people in group homes, and it's great. If I'm away from home and there's 2 pizzas for the price of 1, well, I'll have that. So I end up getting rather porky. And Catherine turned to me and she said, Peter, that's my name, which meant I'd done something wrong. I just want to grow old with you. The subtext of that was, I don't want to look after you when you're disabled, you fat bastard.
Yeah.
That's my interpretation. It's not Catherine's, but it was about saying, look, you need to look after yourself.
Yeah.
So a friend of ours said, do you want to come for a run? Yeah. Then you want to go for a swim. And I used to be a swimmer when I was for 2 years at high school, set an inaugural record for 50-meter breaststroke.
Awesome.
It was the first time they ever had the race. So, and then took us for a bike ride, and then suddenly we both, Catherine and I, are doing a small triathlon. I go, whoa.
So how old were you then?
I was 48.
48. So that's 19 years ago. And you had started your business then. So you were, your time was your own, but that's not really true. We just know that when you're a business owner, you just have lots of little bosses instead of one big boss.
That's right.
However, your time was your own. Well, you're a bit more flexible, perhaps.
well, no, I guess with triathlon, they have this weird thing that they need to start swimming before anybody else has even had their first coffee. Yeah. So it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, you're at the pool. And so then we did this small triathlon. So, but Catherine and I, we didn't realise this, but we're reasonably competitive. I know I'm competitive. There's a ball in front of me, I'll chase it. But 2 into 3 didn't go. So Catherine ended up doing her 3 bits of triathlon, and I ended up doing mine. But then I found the short triathlons I kept on coughing up blood. It wasn't a good experience for me. I mean, I put effort in. So we kind of moved away from the short distance into Olympic, and then into the half Ironman, then into full Ironman. And we had a really good friend we still have a good friend who's he's an ex-copper, and he's really motivating. So he was talking about 80% of your training should be at 80% of your heart rate, so that you don't get tired, you don't get injuries, and you actually enjoy what you're doing. Yeah. So I took that to heart, and I went off and did an adult ed course on how to run a marathon.
You can do that? There's an adult ed course on that?
Yeah,
No way.
it was over a weekend and it was absolutely brilliant. I learned so much about what to do and what not to do, and I took it. There was a guy there whose name I forget, but he'd done quite a few marathons and was saying, this is how you do it. Then I met Emma Wheatley, who's Tasmania's first female fire person. And she'd done Hawaii Ironman about 8 times as a professional athlete. And she said, out of every race you do, if you do 20 races, if you get it right once, you're lucky.
Yeah.
Or your food goes or your fluid goes. And I thought, well, that's going to be ridiculous. But she's absolutely right. There is no such thing as a perfect race until you only get it once.
Yeah. And things outside of your control as well in all that.
So many things. But what I did find, and it was just what I practice when I coach people, is that your mindset is the most important thing. Yes. If you plan for it to be a disaster, it will be. But if you plan for the worst and try to find a strategy to mitigate that, the likelihood it won't happen. So I've run quite a few perfect races in my head, not many in real life. So we sort of moved on to Catherine did 6 Ironmen, quite a few Olympic distance. She's quite proud that she beat. So we used to have a little Ironman Olympic distance in Hobart, which was a qualifier for the Olympic team.
Oh, wow.
So that was really exciting, and Catherine did that, and she, for somebody who doesn't think she's a runner, she came second overall and was quite happy with that. But there was a really good half Ironman up in Devonport, and this is the days when you had to qualify to do an Ironman. If you didn't qualify by credit card like you do now, you had to be first, second, or third in your race, and then there were slots that you went down for roll downs. Yeah. And Catherine has a great propensity to vomit after a race. She's really good at that.
Okay.
So I was in hospital with her after this particular race up in Devonport, and I'd done very well, but she'd won her race, and so they did the roll down, and the compare kind of said, yes, Catherine's in hospital. Oh, Peter's won a roll down too. So we both did a Port Macquarie Ironman together for the first time.
Oh, wow.
And so it was really lucky, and we met some really good friends there who we're still friends with. But then you have to then get into the difference of training for a half Ironman is not twice when you're doing a full Ironman. You just got to train differently and smarter. And do 25 hours of training a week, and we just found time to do that. But so I guess my journey with Ironman is I've done 30 Ironmen. I've had the privilege of doing the Hawaiian Ironman. Yeah. And then went on to do Ultraman, which is a 10-kilometer swim, 380 kilometers on the bike, then a double marathon to finish. I've managed to do 4 of those. Peter Hoskinson, who you must interview, was my running coach, and he took me through how to do a double Ironman on day 3 in under 9 hours. At that time, I was 65.
Wow.
So I'm pretty pumped because I am the world champion at my age group. It only means that 40 people have done it in my age group. So
I just love that, though. There's actually, maybe that's the new bar, because I've been running since my 20s, and for me, I've always been a middle of the pack kind of runner, but I have a competitive thing in my head, and so it was like I can't wait till everyone, like, I can be the best in my age group, because everyone will just drop off. But it just seems like everybody's running, and all of the good runners are still running, and the ones, there are plenty of people who are 20, 30 years older than me who are running much faster than I have ever been. So I'm thinking I'm never getting there, but maybe the difference is you've got to find those distances or those events that people as they get older aren't doing. Like you get one that's quite boring.
Well, I didn't do it on purpose, but
I was just saying, not to understate your achievement at all. I didn't mean it like that.
no. I guess that event came about. We had Craig Percival as our coach, and Craig was absolutely adamant that people should do Ultraman. Still to this day, we have tears because he died very young of a blood illness, and kind of one of those things you still don't want to take the message out of your phone, because he was a beautiful man, and he ended up doing an Ironman in every state, day after day after day. And so to run around Hobart with him and his kids, just get tingles.
Yeah.
So he trained a lot of Hobart people in the Ironman distance stuff. As far as actual running goes, we have a lot of good friends, Cameron and Shane particularly we run with, and then Peter Hoskinson, if you want to do some really, really cute, interesting stuff. Peter's probably one of the people that you don't hear much about, because he just does weird things. Like I've supported him and Cameron Crawford and running from Devonport to Dover and Dover to Devonport, that kind of stuff. Or running from Swansea to Strawn at 365 Ks. I got to 140, and I had a baker cyst that burst. I was so glad it burst. It was pretty hard.
Thank God.
But endurance running is different. I went to Adelaide and helped Peter run around the Formula One track. He did 6 days. I did 2.
Wow.
Ran 1 kilometre track, ran around in circles. Now this might tell you a bit about me. Is you'd have to say, how could you do that when you got 1.1 kilometre track and you just run around in circles? 12 hours later, somebody blows a whistle and you turn and run the other way.
Yeah, I've done 12-hour. I've helped. Actually, I've only been in a team for over 6 hours, and I've counted laps here when we did 12-hour ones here a long time ago. And so I've seen people doing it, but they changed every 2 hours direction.
In these events, I don't know whether you found the same. I found that I anticipated for the 2 hours before the whistle went, it's going to be so good when we go the other way. Then you turn around and go the other way, and you go the next 2 hours, you're going, bastards, they've changed the way I'm running. I'm just not running properly.
This isn't fair. What's going on?
But for me, the good thing was that every 1.1 kilometres there was a food station. So I got to eat and drink, and it was wonderful.
So the 400-metre track, it was every few minutes, really. That's the food.
I would think that would be very, very hard. I mean, I've done a couple of fun ones, and they're pretty hard to do. And but congratulations to people who do them, because it is really, there's a lot of mindset you've got to take. And I guess I never get bored. I am blessed with a poor memory, particularly when it comes to pain. Craig always used to say, and Peter says, pain is your friend. You just embrace it. And Peter Hoskins always said, if you're sore running one way, run a different way. And so you take some of those, what might seem to be trite stories, and you make them your own as you go along. But I think that the important thing is to visualize the race, visualize how you're feeling, visualize what can go wrong, and visualize how you're going to overcome those. Sometimes it's really good just to tell a story to somebody. I remember doing an Ironman might have done 11 hours in Melbourne, and then I went to Perth in Western Australia to do a half Ironman. I was racing against a young guy called Cameron Crawford. No, Cameron Wells. And so his next copper, and he's 20 years younger than me. And I was ahead of him on the bike. And I thought, wow, this is awesome. And then you've got to run 3 laps. And I was ahead of him on 2 laps. And then he just looked at me and said, Pete, you're going to lose. I go, okay. So I saw a psychologist afterwards and said, why don't I want to win? And I realized that to me, it's not about winning. It's about the journey. It's about sharing the stories. It's about really getting in touch with the team, people around you, and just sharing in their joy of you doing something. At home we've got lots of medals and gongs and so on, and I mean that just shows that we spent a shed load of money on doing races. And probably the one I'm proudest of is the one that is a big T-shirt on the wall, which is it's Catherine's T-shirt. It's a Bruni Island run, so it's 64, 65 Ks. She did herself. I was a support crew, and just kept on thinking, this is from a woman who hadn't run until she was 42.
Wow.
And you go, wow, well done. And I was part of that. I'm really pumped by that.
Yeah. So what do you think drives you, if not both of you? Is it sounds like a lot of the journey, although you have separate paths, you've been on a lot of it together in one way or another. What do you think drives you guys to want to? Is it, I mean, you said you started because, she said, maybe, I want to grow old with you.
Yeah. Well, there is an exhilaration in running. There's a bigger exhilaration in not running to a point where you're so shagged that you can't do anything for a week. Mm-hmm. There's something pleasurable about just the joy of being out. Mm-hmm. I do enjoy what I call the we factor. When you get to, I remember doing a Christmas run with Peter Hoskinson, and I started out at his place, and we're doing 6.5 kilometers an hour running. Mm-hmm. I'm going, who is this guy? I know he's a great runner, but then we went to the hill near the pool, and we're in circuits up around this hill, and they're running like 4 kilometers up a hill, and I'm doing 5, and then I'm doing 6. And it was just like, these are people, this is like, they wanted to chat, to do a warm up, and to wish each other happy Christmas. So it's those things about, yes, we have a plan, but it's not necessarily sticking to it, to say, what is the plan about? If the plan gets in the way of you enjoying something, change the plan. Because running, while sometimes it might hurt, while sometimes you might get a niggle here, a niggle there, and sometimes it might be -2 outside. It's about just enjoying it and enjoying it with people. I train with people, and I really find that part enjoyable. I like the feeling of coming back home and feeling, feeling up. I like the fact that then my metabolism is quite a bit better, so I can eat whatever I like, but also find that I don't eat all the crap because I know that it's going to spoil the training for the next day, or in my case, spoil the swimming or the cycling. For us both, it's we get an opportunity to be with each other. Mm-hmm. Sometimes talk, sometimes not talk. Sometimes you can solve all the problems of the world. Sometimes you create them.
Yes.
I guess where it became amplified to me is the absolute joy of running was in 2016. I decided to do a marathon a day for 60 days to celebrate my 60th birthday.
That's amazing.
Well, I thought it was going to be amazing, but Catherine said, no, you're not doing it.
Oh.
And I said, well, why is that? She said, well, you want to do it to raise money for our charity. So Catherine has a charity where she builds wells in Ethiopia. It's called waterforvillage.net if you're interested.
We'll put the link in the show notes.
Yeah. And we decided with this charity that every cent we raise goes to the people in Ethiopia. Mm-hmm. And we talk to our children, and their inheritance pays for all the running costs and admin costs. So it was really a unique charity, and it's now putting water for 54,000 people.
Wow.
And it's celebrating its 10th year. So I'm pretty excited about that. But the distance between where the first well was built, so that's at 3,500 meters, above sea level, and to where I guess the nearest village was 40 kilometres.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought maybe that's an analogy. That's why I came up with a marathon.
Yeah.
But Catherine said, look, if it's about charity, then it's got to be something different.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, not about you. So I said, well, how about I do, I don't know, do a month of marathons.
Mm-hmm.
She said, yeah, okay. So I did 40 because I'm not very good at counting. So I did 40 marathons in 40 days. They weren't all straight marathons. Sometimes might do a half marathon and then do a bit later on the day a half marathon. I was working as well. So
Wow.
So I made myself into a university study because I was 60. So it's just like, you're crazy for doing this. But the university came on board. So I had bone density, I had blood tests, I had my heart tested all the time and my respiratory function tested. And I had to give a food diary and a sleep diary. And it turned out that it was really good. And so my bone density improved. Catherine also, as well as being a nurse and a midwife and studying 2 master's degrees at the moment and PhD, she's also a nutritionist. She doesn't stop. She was really keen for me not to do this as a weight loss exercise.
Yeah.
I was really keen to do it for that. So I lost 2 kilograms of visceral fat and 1 kilogram of external fat.
Wow.
Which is amazing. So it didn't achieve my aim, but I achieved lots of other aims. I talked to like 3,000 people, was on the radio all the time. We raised about $18,000 just by talking to people.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And I think, but it wasn't hard. This is the thing. This is the thing that got me. It was not hard because every day I'd look up the mountain. I think the people were providing, but bear in mind that I hadn't been to Ethiopia. This is the mountain that's where Catherine goes is 2.5 times that. Mm-hmm. And these people have nothing. And the mountains are steep and women are carrying water, 25 kilograms of water on their back up these steep mountains 3 or 4 times a day. They're not going to school, they're not eating, their children are getting diseased water, and diarrhea kills 2 billion, diarrhea impacts on 2 billion people in the world every day.
Yeah.
That's a third of the world's population suffers from diarrhea due to dirty water. And so I was just able to tell people these stories, and I would run and I'd meet Rick Goddard and I'd meet Bear or something like that. And it was, but on top of that, I just found that because I was so relaxed, and wherever I would say to Catherine, I'll meet you over the other side of the river, and she'd go, okay, I'll follow you. And then I'd be able to have an egg sandwich and a cuddle, and then have a drink of coffee with her. She's got this great, if you ever want to do endurance running, have Catherine as a nutritionist. So she'd have a hot coffee with a ice cream dunked in it.
What?
Best thing ever. Energy food.
Sounds like Coca-Cola at the 32K mark, 36K mark.
Or in Ironman used to say that Vegemite for you at 36 Ks, and what it was a lollipop stick with a stick of Vegemite on that. Not appealing at all. I grew very fond of boiled egg sandwiches. My staple.
Oh wow.
We made lots of new friends through this. Still good friends, right, who were starting off their racing and said, can I come for a run with you? And I go, sure. I'm not going very fast. Well, my sort of times were, I did 44 kilometers every day because I thought my Garmin might be dicky. So I think my slowest was 5 hours 36, and my fastest was I averaged 4:29 for running 44 Ks every day. And I'm not a runner. I don't think myself as a runner. Mm-hmm. What I did get, though, was superb sponsorship from Steigen Socks and also from the Running Edge. I think I was the first person in the state to use so many hockers. I used to get a pair of hockers every week.
Oh, that's amazing.
and they were great. And we sort of had more and more people coming along for the journey. We've got T-shirts made up, of course, and
Yeah.
really good sponsorship from some companies. And I just thought for me, it was an out-of-body experience most of the time. But it made me realize one thing that we haven't spoken about is the runner's high.
Mm-hmm.
I used to think that the runners got the high when they cross the finish line.
Yeah.
In actual fact, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You get it all the way through, especially if you're willing to accept it. Because with the high comes the low. So it's what are you doing when the low comes? And so when the low came, and one of my colleagues taught me this, he said, you just aim for something. So you're not fartlekking as such, but you might aim for that next power pole and the one after. So you do 2 steps forward and then say, do I want to do 2 steps forward again? And so you're always just doing short bites. So even in a marathon is not a long distance. It's lots of short distances added up. And so that's where my mindset came with when I got the lows. And so I had this thing, it was the 3 Fs. If I wasn't having fun, it was probably due to food, and it might have been due that I had the fear that I was going to fail. So I just worked through it and say, is my body okay? My body's okay. Well, then I must be hungry.
Yeah.
So drink or eat. Or I thought to give myself a little challenge to say, just run 10 steps faster and then just go back to your normal pace. So you do all these little tricks in your head, and because it's only your head that needs to be convinced that what you do.
There's a lot of amnesia, and we talked about that before as well. I think that happens, and it doesn't just happen when you've completed the run and you forget all the bits that were not so fun. It also happens in the middle of it. Like, 1 minute you're feeling like this is like horrible. Why am I doing it? And you're almost talking yourself out of it. And then 5 minutes down the track, you're, oh, look, it's a beautiful bird and the sky is amazing and I feel really good and I'm flowing now. So and you forget that 5 minutes ago it felt crap.
Yeah.
We have that kind of amnesia even, out there.
Absolutely. And I think it's where you do what's called getting in the state, but also recognizing that sometimes you're not in the state.
Yep.
So, and it's about how do you manage the not in the state business, because there's usually something happening. And so an example, if I can give you an example with me, is Catherine had done the Brunei Island run. I was really, really pumped with her. The next year I went with a good friend, and we had a headwind going across the peninsula of the isthmus. And I got to the end of the isthmus and we're just heading up into the forest. I was flying, I was doing okay. But Catherine said to me, Peter, you were pretty cranky with me at the last food stop. And I said, oh, was I? She said, yeah. I said, oh, well, I don't want to be cranky, so I stopped. So I haven't finished the race. Because it was
actually stopped. You didn't just stop being cranky, you stopped the race.
Wow. Stopped the race, pulled out. And now it wasn't, Catherine didn't say pull out.
Yeah.
She was probably disappointed that pulled out, but to me it was about, I have utmost respect for my partner that I'm not going to be cranky with her. I don't need to be. It was I'd lost the fun. Yeah. And I hadn't had a plan B for what happens if I lose the fun. Yeah. Other than pull out. And to this day I don't regret it. It's a big call, and it was a good call.
One of the things that I'm developing at the moment is mindful running and strategies for mindful running. And a lot of that is what you're talking about. But for those things and to practice those times, mindfulness tells us that they're going to come whether you like it or not. And just like you said, practicing for it. So when it comes to mindfulness, yes, we let them come, but we don't focus on it. We don't give it lots of attention. We're just like, yes, we know you're here at the moment. We know that it feels crap right now. That's fine. I'm still going because that's my goal is to whatever your goal is. And you can be here for as long as you need, but that negative feeling or whatever's going on. And as long as it's not an injury or whatever, so that doing body scans and things like that while you're running. Yeah. I think, yeah, it's a lot of synergy for what you were saying there. And I think that's how we get through those times.
Yeah, and I think it's got to be an internal motivator. We were taught when we were doing Ironman to put, you're running for your loved one, put a picture on. I have never found that to be of any use at all.
Mm.
You've actually got to be selfish. It's about why am I doing this? It's because I'm awesome and I want to be more awesome. Or I want to just feel, I chase the pain. I really chase the pain.
Yeah.
I think it's going to hurt. So what am I going to do when it hurts? Well, I have this idea that, I'll have some Panadol or I'll have some ibuprofen or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll also have some drink or also have some diversion.
Yeah.
But I know it's going to hurt, but it's not bad. I'm not sitting on the couch getting a thumb injury from pressing the remote control. Yeah. I'm out doing stuff. I'm out there whether it's the fresh air or whether it's cars around everywhere. If you're doing a city marathon, it's about chasing, knowing what you want. Sometimes it's about that. I remember the second marathon Ironman I did was with a good friend in Melbourne who was really quite, I guess, gay adverse and shy, but we crossed the line together, and I made sure, and my vision was, I'm going to hold this guy's hand. We're not gay, but we're really good friends. But I just want to show, mate, I love you, and here it is.
Look what you did.
Look what you did, and I thought, to this day, he still calls me lots of names, but so you find fun. We all of us, the cohort that I train with, talk to people. We laugh at people. We shout. I remember I've done the Point to Pinnacle 5 or 6 times, and I went with my mate Shane. It was his birthday. He's a really good runner, and he's 20 years younger than me. We're running up this mountain, and I just thought, you get past the springs, it gets a bit cold, it gets a bit cool, your head goes funny because you're actually going slower, and the walkers are going just about the same pace as you. But I turned around, ran backwards, and started singing Happy Birthday. Oh. And for him, he stopped. I tried to get him to carry on, but he'd stop. He was emotional about it, and I just said, "Oh well, I'll go to the top anyway." I wasn't. It was a race, But I think you chase those things that are important to you, and people have to find what it is. One of my, I think about the 20th. So 20th of October, it was my 20th marathon. I'd had people around. We've been able to go out and have steak and potatoes and eat a lot more, and I've been through all the tests with the university and the hospital, but I woke up crabby. And what you'll find with me is, if I'm happy, it's authentic. If I'm crabby, it's the best crabby you'll get.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty switched on and take responsibility for my emotions, and it's like, no, I'm feeling crabby today. So I put my 2-litre backpack on and I ran to Blackman's Bay over Bonnet Hill and came back, and Catherine said to me, "Are you okay now?" "Yeah." "Good, but you've got another 10K to go." So, "You're still crabby, go away." But, I think sometimes you've got to do the solo stuff and get into your own head.
Yeah.
Feel your heart rate, feel what it feels like to put yourself under pressure, and enjoy it. Hate it at the same time.
There's so much, like, in a lot of that you've been saying about the journey, which I love, and it really resonates with me. But also, I listen to a lot of ebooks about, mindfulness and all of that, because that's my thing, and running in particular. And the fact that our bodies have not changed in thousands and thousands and thousands of years, nor has our brains. And that we were designed to run because that's how we didn't get eaten. That's how we caught our food. There's a lot of things that we already have that innately that we don't connect with that much in our current society, because we're so in our culture, because we're so full of all these other things that these opportunities. And I feel like that's why running's seems in my brain anyway, that lots of people are running now and that it seems to have taken off. And I have heard it explained that it's potentially because we're so far removed from what our genetics, our DNA is programmed us to be like, that we're searching for those opportunities to, as you've been expressing, push ourselves to the limit a little bit physically, rather than sitting on the couch all the time. We're searching. That makes sense. Our modern people are.
I think that's right. And we can search by artificial means, like through drugs and through alcohol and whatever. I think if in terms of community, I think it's a better way to go. Whether it's somebody starting walking for the first time, whether it's somebody running at 10 kilometers an hour, or whether it's 8 kilometers an hour, to me, it doesn't really matter. As long as you're moving forward, and you're moving forward and you're doing it with purpose, you will innately feel better. Now, we'll always compare ourselves to other people, and there are always people far better than us. So it's really got to be satisfied with what we're doing and what we were doing yesterday that we could be doing tomorrow. Because to me, that's a journey, as you say. It's a journey about, I think I was 84 kilos when I first started running. When I started doing the month of marathons, I was 74. I'm now, I don't exercise at the moment because I've got some chronic pain issues, but that's not related to running. Some people tell me it is, and I definitely get stuck into them because running has been nothing but good for me. It's given me friendships. It's given me a place to travel. I've got lots of new clothes and shoes and bling, which is awesome. And I think, I'm not a person who does numbers. Peter Hoskinson can run past you and tell you what speed you're doing. It's how talented he is. I don't. I just know, I don't particularly really even care. Just as long as I'm moving forward. But in the month of marathons, for example, I had 4 more marathons to go, and I ended off with the Point to Pinnacle. So I ran 21 Ks in the morning and then did the Point to Pinnacle. And it was a really wet day, so unfortunately we didn't go to the top. Went to Fern Tree and came down.
Come back down.
Yeah, and I collapsed at the finish line because I actually broken my pelvis. But I'd actually broken it four marathons before. But because I was having massages every day, they're saying, Pete, you've got tight tendons. Now, they knew I'd fractured. I had a stress fracture of a pubic ramus. So, but you just go through it. Now, maybe that's stupid. I don't know, but I had a goal. Was doing the running for other people. It was an external expression of what I was doing. Now, those people would never know what I did. They'd never even understand. They find, for example, in Ethiopia, that we Westerners will put our bikes on a roof rack, drive 2 kilometers to go on the bike track, and they go, but you've got a bike.
That's so weird.
Yeah. And what are you swimming for when you're not catching fish?
That's right.
Or swimming away from a shark? And so I do think it is about the mind that you want to create. And it's about but there's also then underneath all that, it's about how you want to feel and how you want to look and who you want to be with. So I've trained quite a few people, and it's been done just because it's fun. I love running with our grandkids. I'm an accredited coach, but I don't kind of use that anymore because no one's asked me. They do.
They might now.
Well, I'm more into the social justice enterprises that we're developing down here through our business about getting people with disability into full employment. It's a bit of a focus. And I guess it also is what can your running be an addition to what you do in your daily life, and or can it be an expression of what you really like to do for society? Because just the mere fact of you running in a community can actually be you don't know, if you talk about it as being primary healthcare, we don't know what the payback is. Somebody could see you running and a month later say, I saw you running. You weren't going very fast. You had a big smile on your face. Then you were at a coffee shop. That could be fun.
Exactly.
So it's about, we don't know what the impact we have.
You can't measure it.
No. And but I think measuring things in racing and in gongs is good for some people, and it's good for some people at some times. It's really useful as a training tool to know what your baseline is and then go blah, blah. But it's whatever floats your boat. I mean, and it's also, I think, very important to tap into what you're naturally good at. So I believe I'm naturally good at long distance, slow heart rate, plenty of time to drink and eat and talk. Some good friend of mine who does the same. He's really good at sprinting.
Okay.
Our son Matthew is good at running up hills.
Yeah.
I don't like running up hills, but they're there, so you've got to do them. We've got a good friend who's really good at cross-country running. And so you find those things that you're not really comfortable with and go with them and see what happens. You never know.
You know, it's all part of the journey, isn't it? Like there's no destination. Actually, that's part of that journey thing that I wanted to say before too.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, there are many people and some people who are naturally gifted and want to represent Australia or whatever, then they do have to focus on a certain thing. But for us amateurs is don't set up an end point of saying, I must be able to run 4 million kilometers. Just start and see what happens and enjoy that, and then see where you can tweak and what you can get good at, and who can you celebrate with. So this whole Strava, Facebook, Garmin stuff is pretty good. You know, I see no problem about doing that.
About getting out there and sharing it with those around you.
Yeah, and then don't be a fair weather runner. Enjoy what it's like when it's running when it's -2, and you've got to put a face mask on. Also, just see what that's like. Go and experience it. You might hate it, but at least you try.
I always feel pretty proud of myself when I run in storms and stuff. And actually, once you're out there, it's awesome. I just don't like stepping into the rain, but once I'm out there, it's all good.
Yeah, well, you're unfortunate. You'll probably get your hair wet, but I don't have any. So
it gets knotty as well. So you really don't. You're not missing anything. It's very annoying.
Yes, you're running in the fog.
Yeah, I do here.
I think sometimes to set up an event. You know, our son just says, "Well, I'm going to get 1 or 2 people together, and we're just going to run from South Launceston to Lagana."
Yeah.
And then Lagana, his partner picks him up and they go off and have a drink. It's just a good thing.
Yeah, that's quite common. I live just past Lagana. Running into town and home from town has been a common thing in my past. So it's quite fun. Not in doing it with other people, of course, is also really awesome.
And of course, be safe, be seen. I always wear bright colours. I often have on my running belt a red light so people can just flashing at the back like a bike does. I'm often known for somebody who might do a 21k run on a Saturday and go to the market and run down Sandy Bay Road with some irises for my wife.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Well, it's all fun, isn't it?
It is. It's just making it part of your life as well.
Yeah, and I don't mind looking like a dickhead. I mean, I am normally, so why not?
You may as well have the external
of
that, not just keeping it to yourself.
And I do tell people, and this might be a bit trite, but I do say I sometimes like running to be seen.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily because I like to be seen. It's like saying, well, look, here's an old fart doing this. Why don't you do it?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, you could do it as well. We talk quite a bit on the podcast over the years, especially to parents, about what that example gives to their children, and how important that is, right down to the DNA thing. Like if my dad runs or my mum runs, well, they're part of my DNA, as a child. So therefore, if I ever want to run, I could, as opposed to people who go, I can't run.
Yeah. And I don't take kindly to people who say they can't do something, because you can do anything.
If you really want to.
If you've got dicky knees, you can wear braces. You can walk quickly. You can be an expert at walking quickly up a hill with poles in your hand.
Yeah.
You can do water running. You can do anything. And I think we, Catherine and I have been examples to our children. We have Matthew, who's done 4 Ultramen, and I think he beat me a couple of times, but he is a lot younger. And no, I shouldn't take that away from him. He's pretty awesome, and he's the same. He's just like, I'm out here to have fun.
Yeah.
And then his daughter, who's 22, she's been to the World Championships in Hawaii, but it was somebody who never ever thought that you'd do an Ironman, but ended up doing a couple and qualifying. His youngest brother, he's started off, his first run ever was an Ironman.
What?
Then he did a 50-kilometer run that started at 2 o'clock in the morning, up to where the Ironman started. And we did the Maramoo Marathon, which is in WA. It's a cross-country marathon, 44 Ks. Father and 2 sons, and that was. It's pretty special when you can run with your kids, and they let you keep up.
Yeah. So what have you created, really? You're probably a perfect example of that. What you can show your children, and that they can take some of that stuff on board.
I think I've created a monster, but I've also created pretty evil in that. Our youngest son, we did a marathon in Perth. They have a very big running club. And he has anxiety, and I knew this. So the night before he's meditating, the morning before he's meditating, we're running to start the race, and it's just about to start, and I have to dash off to the toilet. And I get to the start line with him with about 3 seconds to go, and I got a lot of abuse, and I deserved it. But it was like, I'm just saying, just chill. It's not a problem. If you start a minute later than everybody else, it doesn't really matter. And that was a game.
I think I would have been abusing you too.
But then I don't mind it, because I deserved it.
That would be one of my anxieties, I think. Anyway, it's like, no, I don't want to be late. No. Anyway, so you alluded before that you're running. Well, you're not running at the moment. Tell us a little bit about that.
I have I had a back issue where I had a new L4 disc put in, but I've had the back issue for a long, long time. But I've dealt with it through massage and through heat packs and anti-inflammatories and so on, and lots of injections. But then got to a point where I had to do something about that. I was losing sensation in the left leg, which I had lost for a while, but anyway, it stopped me running. The neck issue is more, I think it's familial, so I blame my mum for that. I shouldn't really, but it's just the structures in my neck aren't that great. So I ended up having some denervations done in Melbourne. So I was asleep, 6 down one side one day, 6 down the next day. 2 days after that, I travelled up to Cairns, because I registered for the Cairns Ironman, because I'm probably known as Mr. Registration. Okay. I'll register for something and then say, that's coming up. How am I going to do that? So I take it seriously, not. And but when I got there, my neck was swollen, and it was what they had done is they should have kept me awake when they did the denervations, and then actually not caused the damage that they did. So that's been 4 years of chronic pain. I've now, with my wife's great guidance, I have a really good plan. And it will be in the next couple of weeks, I'll start getting back on the bike and swimming and running. I've been told that I can't run, But I'm thinking more and more that where I get my absolute joy when I do exercise is running, and I'm going to do that.
Okay, I think that's a good plan.
Yeah.
Sensibly, but it's a good plan. You obviously, both of you have medical backgrounds now and stuff, so you know what you're doing.
Yeah. So it starts off with, bushwalking this weekend with a couple of people for 2 or 3 days, and I've done that before, and that's been fine. So I think I can run. My weight has come down to where I want to be. What am I now? 71 kilos, and I'm 174 centimeters. So my BMI is okay. But normally I wouldn't worry about that. If you're starting exercise, I just start. It's about how you start. So mine will be, as Craig used to say to us, Craig Percival, would be, you do run, walk. So I would run for 9 minutes at a pace and then walk for a minute and then run, walk. Now, he did that method in the Ultraman in Hawaii. So this is an 84K run in Hawaii, and that's all he did. And unfortunately, Joaquin got picked to the post, but he came second. And
that's still amazing.
Yeah, but that's why I think having a plan about what does your body want, and sometimes your body wants. So in an Ironman, in a running part of the Ironman, because the marathon is every 2 kilometers is a drink station. So why can't you run, then walk quickly, and then run and walk quickly? So you pace it out, and I think if that's what your body needs, then you just do it. Don't ever think that you have to do something because the script says you must run 21 kilometers. Well, sometimes life gets in the way. Yeah. Our first, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to and get into trouble. Catherine and my first marathon was a Cadbury marathon.
Yeah.
We did it together. We did 4 hours 15, and we had 7 wee stops.
Wow, that's a few.
6 of them were Catherine's.
No, you probably shouldn't have said that.
No, but for Catherine, it was like she just that was what she needed to do, and so you just go with it. And I ran with people who grumbled and complained, and it must be so hard to do that. Whereas I just enjoying it. If it's hurting too much, talk to your body and just say, my body's hurting now. So in 2 lampposts time, I can make a choice to walk. And I will walk quickly because I've done it in training. So you practice it in training, you do it in a race, but you always give yourself your mind to control your feet, not the other way around.
Yeah.
So don't stop until you've made a conscious decision to stop 2, 3, whatever things ahead.
Yeah, I love that. What kind of goals do you have? Do you have any goals at the moment for your recovery?
Yeah, I've got a half Ironman to do in February.
So you've registered already? Before you're the registered.
I registered last year and decided to pull out. And it's only the second race I've withdrawn from, but that's okay. And this year, if I'm not fit enough for swimming, biking, or running, I'll go into make it into a teams, and I'll train with people, and we'll just change it around. Yeah. And I'm kind of roping my wife and my granddaughter in as backstops, but they don't know that yet.
Oh, well, hopefully they won't listen to this. They won't know still.
Always going to have a plan B.
Go back up.
Because what do you do if you wake up in the morning and you just feel like I did on my 10th Ironman in my hometown in Wales, which is the first time I'd ever been back. Catherine and I both had viruses. And Catherine decided to stay home because she's a nurse and smart. I'm a nurse and stupid. And so I went and I did the race. And it wasn't a great race, but my main aim there was to do the race in my hometown. Yeah. I didn't really care where I finished. And yet the next day, antibiotics, coughing my lungs up. But I shouldn't have done it. Really, I mean, it's to do endurance or any sort of forced exercise when you've got a virus is not the smart thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my strong advice that I don't follow.
That's one of those things that my friends and I have sometimes talked to, who are mostly nurses that I run with, which is odd, and doctors. When you run with a cold versus a virus, sometimes that can get the cold through your system a little faster, just because you're coughing up your, I don't know, you're moving things through.
I think that sounds like an excuse.
We're making it up because we're all addicted to running. So,
yeah. I certainly have a qualifier at the end. Is that any medical advice program should be taken with a pinch of salt?
Yes, this is not medical advice. Go and ask your dentist. We have no idea what we're doing.
No.
So how long do you think that you'll run for? It's a question I ask most people, like in their lives. Like, do you think is running going to be a part of your life for how long?
Well, if you consider that I started at 50,
mm-hmm.
and now I'm 67, I don't know, just keep going.
Yeah.
Why not? I'll always be moving forward while I can.
Yeah.
Because, I probably envisage there may be a Zimmer frame race one day, which I will win.
I love it. I love it. That almost sounds like a triathlon, doesn't it? With like little wheels on this.
Yes. There's nothing more pleasurable than putting your shoes on and thinking, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this. Going for a run, give yourself 5 minutes and then see how you feel. And you will do at least 10 because you've got to run 5 minutes back home. And then a 10-minute run's nothing. So you may as well go 15.
Exactly.
A half-hour run, that's okay.
Sometimes I ask people if they've got any tips for that the daily motivation to get out the door. We were talking a little bit before about, when the weather's a bit ordinary outside, or you just had a bad night, whatever, you didn't sleep enough, or maybe you imbibed too much the night before. We had a couple of glasses of wine or something. But anyway, you're not feeling like it. What do you say to yourself in those circumstances? How do you get yourself out the door? Are there any tips?
Yeah. Always have my gear ready.
Yep.
If I'm really committed, I have my gear ready.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think about, before I go to bed, what am I going to have in the morning?
Yeah.
So it's usually a coffee and a little bit of oats or something.
Yeah.
Then if I have been imbibing, I would have made the decision before that you don't want to do dead miles.
Yeah.
There's no point doing
dead miles. I haven't heard that term before.
Well, it's about doing the running for the sake of running rather than for the sake of actually getting any improvement.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's going to be crap run because I'm dehydrated from alcohol and I'm not pretty sure how I'm running, and it's not focused, then there's no point doing it.
Yeah.
So I was talking to somebody about this the other day. As a coach, there's programs you can follow that tells you what you should be doing if you're a 50-year-old who's never run before and what to do this. Well, they're not designed around the ordinary human being who works 40 to 50 hours a week and has a family. So you've got to decide the time you put in to the plan has to be those A things, those A runs. You then have the B runs that aren't that critical if you don't do them.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the C runs of the fun things to do. So as long as during your week, you say, well, actually, I'm going to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 kilometers. And then on Sunday, there's a group run. But I don't like that group because they go too fast. So I'll do a Saturday run with another group. They're your A, but then your B could be the Sunday run. Like if they're running the pipeline track or something, and they love to talk, and that's good, but then they have 2 hours of coffee after, which you go, well, that's a waste of time. So you always do the bit that is going to give you the greatest benefit.
Yeah.
And decide that sometimes it's what you're doing the night before is more important than the run you're doing in the morning.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's just the way I look. So I often have meetings at 7 o'clock in the morning, coaching meetings, like business coaching meetings.
Yep.
So therefore, I wouldn't on those mornings. I'd probably be selective about which mornings I might go for a run at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it might only be a half-hour run. I'm meeting somebody that I really need to get deep and meaningful with, and I'm feeling a bit sluggish in the head, then I would go for a short run.
So you use it then as a
as
business preparing.
Yeah, absolutely. As to help you focus. And but then I don't want to go to a meeting yawning, talking to a CEO, going.
Yeah. So distance is really important in that case. Like if you're using your running in order to focus, as you said. That's really interesting as well.
So I have a good friend who he manages his life by the minute. And he said, I've got 18 minutes to go for a run. And you go, I know they're going to be quality 18 minutes. We're not going to muck around at the beginning. Yeah. We're going to do what we said we're going to do. And then when we come back, it's like he's going to go home.
There's no coffee because he's only got 18 minutes.
Yeah. And for me, that keeps me in control. It's great.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah. And with Catherine, when we were doing Ironman training, we'd go for a 150-kilometre bike ride on a Sunday, and Catherine would have a little sticky note, and that was for after we got over 100 Ks. And she said, well, I've heard enough about the gibberish about whether men should shave or nair or do it, wax their legs. And then we go on to, here's some things we need to talk about. But then when it got to 120 Ks, she'd say, no, the next 30 Ks is just redundant. I don't need to do them. I'm going home.
Okay.
And it wasn't because she was tired, hungry, or bored. She just says, well, all you're doing is you're just rolling and you're going in a peloton. We don't do peloton in Ironman. So she says, I'm not going to do it. And that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, she's really disciplined around that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest lesson is the wasted miles. Don't do them.
To value your time.
Yeah, they don't do you any good. But like when I said I ran to Blackman's Bay and back, that wasn't wasted because it really helped me clear my head because something was rumbling inside me that I wasn't happy with and I didn't know what it was. I figured it out by the time I came back.
Yeah.
I mean, if I hadn't have done, Catherine would have sent me out again. So
it sounds like running for you has been a really good tool, like in your personal life and your business life.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. It's really, particularly when I'm absolutely excited by fat.
Okay.
I like junk food. Give me a pizza any time of the day, but that's not healthy, and it's not good for the long term. And I mean, I could live for a long, long time and eat fat, but I'd probably end up with some factor X or some debilitating disease that I don't know.
You would be uncomfortable, you'd be in pain, you'd be all sorts of other stuff. So, and not happy.
Yeah.
Not happy, probably.
And I remember Billy Connolly once said in one of his jokes, I guess it was, or anecdotes about life, was saying he doesn't understand why people exercise so much so that they can live 2 weeks longer, but it's the wrong end of your life. And I took that to heart and saying, well, actually, I do want to live longer, I think. But I don't want to be a liability for anybody if I can help it. Because, I mean, we work in the health field and you can see so many people who, they wish they had a different life. But at the end of the day, and I don't know the answer to this, but are they happier than the runners? I don't know. I do know that getting out, moving forward and being with other people you talk about mindfulness. It is really good for the mind.
It's so good for the mind. There's a lot of people on the podcast, especially in the early days of the podcast, would say that they started running to lose weight, a little bit like you did, but they still run now, say 20, 30 years later or whatever, because of the people they met. They run because they developed networks and community around that, and they love that. And as you said, that is amazing for longevity for us, for our mindset, for how we feel about who we are. Community is a big part of that. So if you can combine it with your exercise and you're giving your body and your emotional state a little bit of love, which is awesome.
Yeah, and the other thing is the clothing. Don't forget.
Oh yes, clothing's really
But you've got to have. I mean, I'm just amazed at so many people who start running with poor shoes.
Mm.
And I'm not saying Hock is the greatest band or whatever, but having good footwear where you feel comfortable, is really important. Mm-hmm. But also recognizing that they wear out.
What? It was only because of the podcast, and other people kept telling me they wear more than one pair of shoes at a time. Like, I've been running for 20 plus years, 30 years, and now I've got 4 pairs at the moment on the go. Prior to that, I hadn't. I was so silly. Yeah, I know. So silly.
You didn't wear Dunlop volleys, did you, or something?
No. No.
And people did,
and running shoes.
and they said, the was it Bannister set the 4-minute mile in Dunlop volleys, and they're coming back into fashion, by the way.
Oh, nice.
And also recognizing there is a lot of fashion shoes that aren't good for you. So if you want to start running or walking fast or whatever, talk to runners. I have a particular pair of shoes that unfortunately don't fit me now, but they were ones I used to run in up the mountain because I was able to run on my toes. Yeah. But I don't wear them on the flat. Yeah. And specific shoes for specific terrain and wherever you're going. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think and that's an excitement for me. I like buying clothes, I've got lots of flashy shirts and stuff. But I also like dressing down. So when I often run, I would wear triathlon shorts. And why would you do that? Well, you can get really thin chamois, but for blokes who sweat down that area, you don't end up getting chafed. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah. That's crazy. I'd never even thought about that. I might tell my husband that. Anyway, he might like that. Yeah. Peter, it's been awesome. I've kept you for ages, but a couple of things I wanted to ask you before we wrap up. I shouldn't move so far away from the microphone. What do you think running in particular has given your life that maybe you would have missed out on had you not taken to this triathlon running life of yours? I mean, apart from the kilos, of course. Yeah. Well, I've got a svelte figure. I don't have, but what has it given me? Given me closeness to my wife. Mm-hmm. It's given me an outlet for stress. It's given me a really, really good opportunity to think and to think and to think. Yeah. And that's whether it's about work or life. How important do you think that is? Sorry to dwell on that one thing, that thinking thing. Like, are we not alone? Because it's one of my pet peeves is that we're not alone with ourselves very much unless we do something like these endeavors. Well, I think it's we can, the brain is a wonderful thing for catastrophizing things and for making things bigger than what they really are. So you get an opportunity to put things into perspective, to look at the importance of a particular feeling that you might have and go, well, sure, it's not, but is it as important as what I'm making it? So you go for a run, and by the time you come back, usually an answer has trickled down somewhere. Whether the answer is by the running or by the connection with people or the community, it's different for each person. But it certainly can decrease the distress one has around negative thoughts. So, I mean, I don't go with that in mind, but usually I think about a lot of things. I'm not a person. I'm an advocate for not wearing earbuds. For 2 reasons. One is the music distracts you from your thinking, and the other one is it's unsafe because if you wear earbuds like I do, I can't hear a thing. I have tinnitus permanently, so I wear earbuds to try and decrease that noise,
Yeah.
but I just think they're unsafe.
Yeah.
And in triathlon, you're not allowed to wear them, and I think it's fantastic. I think every race you shouldn't be allowed to wear them, because it actually, to me, it takes away the joy of the running. I know people use earbuds when they're listening to fantastic podcasts like yours, and you should only listen to your podcasts.
That would be okay. That's acceptable.
That's okay. That's acceptable. But otherwise, how do you actually mull over the machinations of the world and the feelings that you're having when you're running if you're distracted by headphones or earbuds? I don't know. Some people swear by it. That's good. But so yes, I use it for thinking. I use it for problem solving. Sometimes I use it to calm down the ideas that I have. I've got a brain that goes a million miles an hour. Because I'm Virgo, so I have so many ideas, and I use that to turn that volume down a bit. I enjoy exercise is good because I enjoy more so enjoy the finishing, but I enjoy the starting.
Okay.
Starting anything is a commitment, and when you can make a commitment to yourself, that's actually hard for a lot of us to do. I can make a commitment to you, and therefore I'll probably keep it. If I make a commitment to myself, I'll probably justify why I'm not going to do it. So that resolution is actually an important step in getting in touch with who you really are and being truthful to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably a bit deep, but that's kind of where I think it is.
Yeah. No, I love that, because then once you start, you've lived up to that commitment to yourself, and that speaks volumes to yourself. And you value yourself in your own.
That's right. And to me, I think that's a truism that I've just made up on the spot, but I think it's quite...
It's very profound.
It has some validity. Then I think, yes, I think going with other people has a great sense of worth as well. And I guess going back to what Catherine said is I do, work in the healthcare area. I do want to live a full life. I'm not of any particular religion, so I'm probably agnostic, but I do know that there is something uplifting in running, or doing something different to what you're normally doing, whether that's being a couch potato and then deciding to go for a walk. It doesn't really matter what pace you're going. It's about just getting out and doing something. That's the uplifting part. And yes, we will never be as good as everybody else, but I only compare myself to the commitment I've made to myself.
Yeah.
And so if I've let myself down, I analyze why that is and go, well, okay, 94 reasons why, none of them valid. Lift your game tomorrow.
Move on.
Yeah. And I think that's where it is true, is about being true to yourself. But also, probably something I haven't spoken about is just being damn lucky that we live in a country where we can do this, and we're not running away from tigers, and we're not running away from bombs, and we're not running to go and get water. We're just doing this because of the pure sense of, I choose to do this.
Yes. There's a big part, like anybody who's done any traveling outside of what's the word? Not into the third world, but into the other countries that are not. What's the word for Australia and America and?
We're the lucky countries, I suppose.
Yeah, all those countries. There's a word for it. Anyway, yes, if you travelled outside of those, you will have witnessed what it's like to live in places where life isn't as easy. Basically, and your daily things are still around survival. They're not around choosing to go for a run. That makes sense,
right? Yeah. And so I guess going back to your mindfulness work, is that I think exercise of any sort, running in particular, you've got the opportunity to be for you to choose to be the best version of yourself. You can make that choice, and making that choice is a bloody awesome thing to do.
It is.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Hmm.
Well, obviously, I love it. I have a whole podcast about it.
I think
running.
Yeah, we do a lot of work in trauma, and so a lot of trauma is actually, how do I put it? Is for a lot of people, it's not understood by themselves. It's subconscious.
Yeah.
Especially when it's up to the age of 10, and when you take the cohort of people out for a run, they start to kind of delve into that past, and then start to rewire the brain around the great stuff, the good stuff, which then hopefully over time overcomes some of the negative things that subconsciously they didn't even know about. So it can change behavior, and that is great.
That's amazing, really. It's just it's using the things that we've always had but don't know how to use, that makes sense, and being able to tap into those. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I do too.
I love it. Well, Peter, we could talk for hours and hours and hours. We already have. And it's been amazing. Is there anything, and there probably is heaps, but is there anything about running that we haven't talked about or touched on that you want to share before we wrap up?
Only a really dark side of running, I guess.
No, there's no dark sides of running. No, keep going. I'm sure there is.
I think for people is find people who you aspire to be, or you enjoy being around, and run with them, walk with them, ask them to take you for a walk rather than a run. Don't get caught up in the hype. There's a lot of crap out there, and a lot of stuff around, because it's like 1 and 1 does not necessarily make 2. So people eat paleo and they wear rubber tires on their feet. And they do magnificent running, so therefore we should all go paleo. Well, there's a bit in the middle there where they drink a shed load of alcohol. I would rather go have the alcohol. So somehow someone's written a book, and anyway, that's just
connections are a little bit loose between some of those things.
Yes. And so I would look at people like yourselves, and look at like Pat Farmer. Look at some of
he's been on the podcast, by the way. I've had Pat Farmer on the podcast.
And look at some of the fantastic endurance runners we have and coaches we have around Tasmania itself. Running's been around Tasmania for a long, long time. Stanos was here back in the 70s, and Peter Hoskins has written a whole story about what they've done. And one of them was quite funny, if I may, is this Belgian runner was running down. He'd done running down at Port Arthur. They did it's called Run Around Tasmania, and he had run down there, then up on the east coast, and then he got to Cradle Mountain, and he'd been told to train for mountain running, and he said he didn't do too well, because his running up mountain training in Belgium was to run up a bridge that was 30 meters high. he didn't realize what hills were, because Belgium was flat. And I think that even just sharing those stories, and if adult ed ever comes back, get into endurance running, because endurance running helps any running. So friends of mine have been masters rowers doing 2-minute races. They do endurance exercise for their sprint. And to me, if you can run or walk and still talk to somebody without being too puffy, that's the pace you should be doing. You won't get many injuries. Go and have a great massage. Go and enjoy great company, and live a long life. Yeah,
I love that. And live it comfortably, like not with, pains and things like that.
And I think sometimes you've got to make pain your friend. It is there, but there's a lot more pain sitting down doing nothing and then realizing that you've got emphysema.
I should have said illness rather than pain. Illness with that.
Illness, yes. Yeah.
I've got no words today. Luckily, you've got heaps, so it's good.
Well, I'm hoping I haven't spoken too much, but
No, you've spoken awesome. I love it. Some days when you've got the words, they are not coming out of your mouth.
You need to go for a run.
I've had a run today. I run every day. I'm doing streak running at the moment. I have to run 2Ks every day, and I'm training to do an ultra. So I often run more than 2 kilometers in a day, but yeah, so I run every day.
I think that's great. And my most fun running when I was training from the 84K runs was to do 10Ks in the morning, 6Ks in the afternoon, and this measly 4Ks in the evening. And the 4Ks, you get so out of you're so wobbly and you're so out of your zone. It's actually going, well, how can a 4K run do this? And actually, how can a 4 do this? And you go, and it's there. That's where the gold is. You learn so much about yourself.
That's what my coach has told me, that I'll be doing 2 runs a day soon. So
and then do 3.
She hasn't said that, but maybe. Maybe I will.
I'd suggest that those days get somebody else to cook tea.
Yes, I actually have installed that recently. I'm very proud of myself. I'm getting off 3 nights a week now, so I'm very happy.
Well, it's a human being's life to feed themselves, I reckon. And so on those days when you have to do a lot of running, we used to do FFYS, fend for yourself.
I love it. I'm going to do that. Yeah. It's beautiful. Before we go, don't go once we get off anyway. I'll say goodbye to you off the recording, of course. But before we go, I always ask everybody for some tips for beginner runners. I feel like you've sprinkled a few through anyway, but if there was just a handful that obviously being running coach, you'd have a few anyway. It's not a challenging question for you, but what would you say to someone when they come to you and say, Pete, I want to start running?
Yeah, I'd find out the why and look at what people's expectations are. So why would you want to run? Is it, do you have, and then I look at, do you have the time in your day to run? So remember, when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. I want to know, what are you saying no to? And is that no acceptable within your family life? Because running is selfish. And you have to say, I'm saying yes to this, but I'm saying no to that. So a bit like yourself, I'm going this, but hey, you guys are cooking tea.
Yeah.
Some families, that's not acceptable. So I think you've got to find out, what are they giving up?
Yeah.
What are they prepared to give up? And then say, is running part of the psyche of your family? Because if you're not coming from a running family and you're the first person to run, that can be a demotivator in itself. Because you're going to come back, yay, joy, full of stuff, and the family's going to go, oh, just turn the television on. And so are you going to get the feedback that you want? So then if it's for weight loss, I'd say, well, first thing to do is let's just get fit for weight loss. So let's do some walking. Let's do some hill climbing. Let's do some put a backpack on with some cans of baked beans in and do that first. Get yourself, your body, your hips prepared for that. And then I'd ask them about, do they have the finances? Are they prepared to do some remedial work, such as having a massage and whatever? And who around them can they talk to about what's working, what's not working? That's the way I work.
I love that. That's like, a lot of people come at it, and there's no right or wrong answers, but with shoes and go running, join parkrun or whatever. So whereas yours is even more getting into your head and working out why you're doing it, and do you have the support systems around you even before you start, before you buy a pair of shoes? So really interesting. So thank you for that. It's great to have another perspective.
That's okay, because we personally as coaches want people to succeed, but I'd never take anybody on if it's a failure. Yeah. Because I don't want people to fail. No. I want them to be the best version of themselves. So let's find out what's working for you. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. Thanks, Peter. Now, you're not doing coaching anymore at the moment. Is that what you said before? You're focusing on your
yeah.
Oh, you are doing coaching?
No, I'll always find time. But My focus is on some social enterprises that we're doing. But if anybody wants me to coach them, just give me a call. I'll probably charge them nothing, but it's okay.
I'll put the details. I'll talk to you in a minute. I can put some details into the show notes if you want as well.
If you wish, yeah. But it's not about that. It's about,
no.
I'm actually quite interested, and we'll go to listen to your podcasts. I'm quite interested in the mindfulness part, because it is all about the noggin.
It is. All our life actually is. We eventually work that out, I think. Eventually. It just takes time. All right, Peter, it has been awesome. Like I said, don't jump off, but a big thank you for sharing so many goodness, so much goodness in there. It was very inspiring. Loved listening to you. Could just keep listening to you for another couple of hours, but, got to get on and do some other things. So thank you for sharing all of that. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you too. I loved it, Michelle.
Thank you for listening to the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast. I'd love to talk to you about your running journey. Send me a message on Facebook or on the website and let's do it. I also wanted to let you know that I've created an email list so you won't miss any podcast episodes. You'll find details in the show notes and on the Fit Mind, Fit Body website, along with a bunch of resources on mindful running. They'll help you to get and stay mentally and physically fit. And I'll see you there. Plus, I'll be back here in your podcast player a few times a week. Hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you would leave a review. It'll help more people to find the podcast and get inspired to start running and ultimately to improve their life. See you soon.